It's me, Sean Capri. I'm in my car, and you're listening to the most horsepowerful podcast on the internet. It's the Xbox Drive. I'm on a Skype call with my friend Ryan Turford. He's the man on the moose, and on our journey today, I finally finished Tales of Arise, and Ryan's played about 45 hours of Far Cry, and I played less than that, so let's jump on into the Xbox Drive.
Greater than X.
Hello, Sean Capri.
Ryan Turford, fair warning to you and to the audience. I am really overtired and I am well caffeinated. I'm back on the caffeine. I am pumped up by 1,000 things. So it's a weird melange. That's French for mix for your Ryan Turford. French Canadian, maybe. I don't know if it's real French.
I guess. Well, thank you for the French lesson, Sean. Of
There
course,
you go.
this is the Xbox Drive. We talk about Xbox all the time, and I'm rushing into the show
Xbox Drive.
because I know we got a lot of stuff to talk about. So let's clean the garage very quickly. If you want to support the show, if you like what we do, of course, head over to your podcast service of choice. We're on Google Play, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us there. Maybe you leave us a nice little review on that Apple Podcast. If you leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, we will read it on this week's show. Speaking of Apple Podcasts, we actually had a contest for a Space Jam controller that we were giving away from Apple Podcast reviews, and we can finally announce the winner because we drew the winner last week. It was a weird day that didn't make any sense, but Dean Robinson from Australia is the winner of the controller. He actually provided us proof, and we knew that the winner was from Australia, so we put two and two together, and so Dean is the winner, and he will be receiving his controller at some point. So
also, Ryan, I want to throw in here. Dean reached out to us like very shortly after the episode dropped. So shout out to Dean.
9 in the morning on. He left a comment on YouTube and then he had an email very quickly afterwards.
Yeah, shout out to Dean. I don't know if the time zones work out in his favor there, but man, deserving, I would say. One of those quiet listeners. We don't really hear questions from Dean all that often, but obviously took the time to leave a review. Appreciate that, and listens right away. That is phenomenal. So I will be shipping that out very soon. It will be on a boat or carrier pigeon. I've got to sort that out first.
Which is one of the two. Also,
or pelican.
There's that too. Also, if you want to support the show, if you're watching us right here on YouTube, of course, subscribe to us, like the video, share with your friends, all that good stuff. Or you throw a little tip in the old tip jar over at patreon.com/uniquepre if you want early access to this and all of our shows, as well as some exclusive content over there. All right, without further ado, let's rocket into the playlist this week. Let's grab our 8 tracks, pop them in, because we got games to talk about this week, Sean. Lots and lots of games.
For the rest of the damn year, Ryan. We are in it, my friend.
It's just never-ending. It's a never-ending stream of games, and I'm very excited to talk about some of these. So, Sean, hit me up with what you played first.
Let's close the chapter on my journey with Tales of Arise. I have completed it. I said on Twitter, this is currently in my top spot for Game of the Year. This is the game to beat. I think you and I are aligned on that front, Ryan Turford.
Yep,
yes?
Definitely, 100%.
This is absolutely amazing. We are going to have a wonderful, in-depth full review conversation we're going to record tonight with our friend Matt from the PlayStation Drive. That I think is going to, I'm literally making this up as I go along. Maybe it'll drop on the Xbox Drive feed, the PlayStation Drive feed, and the RPG Cave.
Yep. In
feed.
fact, it's going to be an RPG Cave production, Sean.
There you go.
We're going to have all the accoutrements that the RPG Cave has, which will be interesting.
Oh, so, I'll be like a level 99 something.
You will. I'm going to actually have to come up with a class and race for you, Sean.
Yeah.
Maybe
so
some
dorky.
stats, some gear.
Oh my gosh. I'm like totally neutral, chaotic, or whatever the hell. I don't even know.
Chaotic neutral.
The fact that I got it wrong makes it even better. Ryan, Tales is so great. I can't wait to talk in detail with you and Matt. I will say, and I messaged you about this, things in the back half of the game, what I would call the back half, definitely a second part to it, got a little nutso for me. Things they jumped the shark a couple of times in classic anime fashion. So I think I've got some things to sort out with you on our full review. It did not take away from my overall experience. The game is over, and if it wasn't for Far Cry and Nickelodeon Brawl that I'm going to be playing here, and Metroid Dread, which I'll be playing on Switch, like, things are happening. And if that weren't the case, I would be jumping right back into New Game Plus and going back and playing more, because I miss these characters already, man. I took so many screenshots, love me some Tales of Arise. I don't know that I've mentioned this every single time I've talked about it. Code was provided, so take what I say with a grain of salt, but Ryan's code was not provided. Him and I think, landed at the same spot, which is this game is great. Highly, highly recommended.
Yeah, even for someone who's not a Tales fan like Sean, like that's the most interesting part about it. Like this is your first Tales game that you've beaten.
Full through,
and it's not the first one you've played because you played Tales of Berseria, but this is the first one you ever beat. So I can tell,
God.
For even a non-RPG fan like Sean, I think it's still a really impressive achievement. And I definitely think it's much more welcoming for newcomers than any other Tales game. So
I agree.
If you're new to the series, this is the place to start. And even if you don't care about the series, but you like fast action games like Bayonetta or Devil May Cry, I think you're going to like this too. So
Ryan, I had that moment. I don't know if you've ever experienced this before, where you play a game and I just wanted to talk to somebody about it. Like once I completed it, and I think I messaged you afterwards. I was about to launch into a spiel to my wife about like, oh my gosh, this game and blah 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 blah. And I was about to kind of give her the rundown of it and realized that's ridiculous. This is why I have a podcast. You know, I won't put her through that. And I want to put this out there, and people can leave a comment on the YouTube video to, of course, help the algorithm. I have this idea for a production of Yumi and Capri to, especially with JRPGs, I think, for Sean Capri to explain the story of the JRPG poorly. Like I will just, do it like a 5-year-old, 7-year-old, and then this happened, and then there's a guy with an iron mask, and then there's all these things, and I would really like to do that because I will never match you, Ryan, in your ability to hit all of the notes, and you speak very eloquently, especially about RPGs, hence your hosting of the RPG Cave. I will lean into the other direction. I will tell the story that I'm fascinated by, but I will do it poorly and just kind of lean into my non-talent on that front. So we'll see if that becomes a thing. That's an idea I've got right now, Ryan.
Hashtag we'll see on this one. So
hashtag we'll see.
Look out for our discussion. In fact, it'll probably go live the same day this episode goes live. So if you want to hear us more talk in depth about Tales of Arise, if you're on the fence at all and you want to learn more about it, just check that out. It'll be on the podcast feed, and we'll go from there. It'll be also be the very first time we've done a crossover between the PlayStation Drive and the Xbox Drive, which will be interesting.
It's about time. Mm-hmm. I'm beating games, Ryan. I'm actually finishing games.
It's a miracle for sure. 2021 is the year Sean finally started to beat games.
Mm-hmm.
Now, before we get into Far Cry 6, because I know we both played that, and we're going to talk about that in a second. I do want to talk really quickly about the other game that I played and kind of get it out of the way first before we get into Far Cry 6, and that's the Battlefield 2042 beta.
Oh, did you?
It went live this morning. I got 3 rounds in, and then I uninstalled the game because it's something. It's okay. So first of all, I'm someone that was already not super excited for Battlefield 2042. So just understand that that's kind of the position that I'm coming from.
But your expectations were low. Like that's kind of the thing. So you weren't. It might have been harder to win you over, but at the same time, like your bar was pretty low on I
think one of the biggest problems I found very quickly in the game was that the maps themselves are so big that they're like Fortnite level big. And if you don't have a vehicle, it's very annoying to get around the maps. Like I would there were times where I'd be running for 7 minutes straight, trying to find either to run to an objective or a person. And it's just not for me, or it's not, I just didn't have fun with it. But at the same time, I've been looking around on Twitter because I wanted to know kind of what other people thought about this. And I also saw even people that I know who like Battlefield, shout out to one of our friends, Luke Lore, the Insipid Ghost, actually tweeted about this because he also played it and he was like, well, it's something. So he kind of had a similar reaction to I did, where he's like not impressed by it. And I also saw a lot of other people talking about how they played it and they threw it out there. Yeah, I didn't see Benji's tweet, but I heard that I
think his was more of a commentary on just the overall reaction. I generally don't think that he really does that too much of like his own personal take. It's just like he's looking at the reaction, thinking maybe it looks like it needs a little bit more polish. Perhaps. Yeah.
So, and just comparing it to a game like Far Cry 6, where even though the map itself in Far Cry 6 is huge, you usually find, stuff to do along the way, or there's the minute-to-minute gameplay is just so much more engaging than a game like Battlefield 2042. Don't get me wrong, I did find some moments where you had like some epic stuff going on, like 3 helicopters having this like duel in the skies overhead while like tanks on the ground
That
are
is
like
awesome.
shooting at each other. Like all that, seeing that kind of unfold while you're pretty far away from the action was super cool to see. But those were the minority versus the majority of the moments in the game where I'm just running towards the objective, and then when I finally get there, a sniper kills me, and then I have to start back at the last point and then run towards it again. So yeah.
You know what I'm running towards, Ryan? I'm running towards not only McDonald's Monopoly days are back.
It's happening.
Hi there. Can I get a large coffee with 2 Splenda and a large Diet Coke? That's all. It says large orange Pico tea on the screen. That is not. It's not really what I wanted. Large Diet. Okay, she's got it. Yep, that's everything. Thank you. She's really quiet too. I know you can't really tell that. Anyway,
I couldn't even hear her.
I know. Well, exactly. Normally you can kind of hear it kind of coming through. Although you have to check the video to see that I really am here and I am collecting my Monopoly pieces, and I do expect to win a prize this year, Ryan Turford. This Battlefield thing, like, you know, it's no massive action game, Ryan.
Right.
You know, it's no, I feel like they just kind of go in the wrong direction. Like they lean into the things that aren't, I don't know, driving towards really good gameplay. It's like they just hear big map. That's the differentiator. And it's too wide open. I'm with you. I've played a beta on this as well, and I did not have a great time. And I think the technical performance is also going to be an issue. But it does remind me, Ryan, if you want to jump into it shortly, that Halo had a big old map that we played on 12 versus 12 this weekend. That was really good. Like it was funny because as we were playing Halo, I'm like, this is how Battlefield should do it. It doesn't need to be a map big enough for like 150 people or whatever the hell the number is. Like that was so much fun. The vehicles were perfect. They had all the things, the Warthogs, the Ghosts, the Banshees. We even had fun playing Capture the Flag, for God's sakes. We had a full lobby full of 12 people. For goodness sake, like, man, Halo crushed it. And Call of Duty is in a weird space. I think Battlefield is in a weird space as well. So yeah, I don't know if you want to jump into Halo chat right now.
Yeah, we can definitely move on to Halo. I mean, last thing I'll say about Battlefield is that the beta is going on all weekend. So even though I was pretty down on it, you should check out the beta. It is part of Game Pass Ultimate. So I do think it's worth at least checking out to see if the game is going to be worth picking up to maybe save yourself some dollars if it's not. So but yeah, going back to Halo, I mean, we had a blast, no pun intended, this weekend on Saturday. It was so cool to basically be in a lobby with all of our friends playing on one team. Of course, that match just against other teams with lots of players on them who were a little more coordinated than us sometimes, but we got quite a few wins in, and it was a lot of fun. And
so satisfying.
Just like you said, like Capture the Flag was actually surprisingly fun. I mean, I kind of prefer the domination mode or more so the Team Slayer mode. Slayer. Like the 12 on 12 Team Slayer, I think, was probably my favorite mode of the 3. But I thought it was like really fun, Sean.
Capture the Flag was the most surprising to me. I think that's the worthy call out there, because I generally don't love Capture the Flag, and maybe it was just like classic Halo LAN party experience that we had where we're all friends, we're all chatting together, like, and the madness that kind of ensues of getting people there. You got the flag, like, let's get it back. We worked as a team, we got the thing, all that happened. And shout out to TPR and maybe a few other people as well that have reached out and said, like, I'm not a Halo person. This is kind of my first Halo experience, and they're all having a blast. Like, that is exactly what Xbox needs at this stage, is to have people jump in for the first time, have fun, see what the hype is all about. And I feel like they really knocked it out of the park with this, man. The big team battle worked. Again, now we've got 2 weekends in a row. I know some people were into the tech test prior to even that, but really, really successful beta stages that they've got here, or alpha stages, for people to jump in, get really excited. To be honest with you, Ryan, at this stage, I don't know how they go the next however many 2 months without more Halo to be played. Like, I need more Halo in my life.
They've got you hooked, Sean. They're ready to. I mean, they don't want us to retire Halo Saturdays just yet.
Seriously, it's going to be hard to go back to Master Chief Collection, I feel.
But we're going to find out this weekend what that's going to be like.
So yeah.
There you go. I mean, we had talked about the idea of maybe replacing it with like Back 4 Blood this weekend. But we remembered that it's actually not out till next week. So.
Next weekend. Mm-hmm. Damn, there's so many games. We're in it, man. Holy crap. I love it.
Hashtag too many games. But speaking of too many games, Sean, we should talk about the last game that we played. The game du jour, the one that's probably going to take up the most time.
Yes.
Week. So Far Cry 6 is out. We've been playing it. Even though we got codes, I think on Friday of last week, I picked it up pretty much right away because I had finished Tales, whereas I know you wanted to finish Tales first before getting to it. So I think you just played it for the first time last night. So you're much farther behind than I am in Far Cry. But in case y'all are wondering, because reviews went up the morning that we're recording this on Wednesday, but we're recording, of course, you're listening to this on Thursday unless you're a patron, that we would normally do a review for when kind of the embargo lifts and kind of when all the other reviews goes live. But this time around, we found out very, very quickly that this game is much bigger than
gigantic.
all of the other Far Cry games that ever came before it. In fact, I actually went back and did a comparison because I played both Far Cry 4 and Far Cry 5 on Xbox. And all Xbox games, for the most part, usually have an in-game timer that can be found just on the dashboard if you go find the game in your achievement section. So I was like, okay, let's compare my playtime in Far Cry 6 and kind of how it compares to older Far Cry games. So in particular, Far Cry 5, in order for me to beat Far Cry 5 and even do some post-game stuff, it only took me 24 hours to beat that game.
Oh, what? Really?
Yeah.
That's
and that's with 100%ing 2 of the 3 zones, and then the third zone I got all of the bases down, but I didn't collect every single thing in the environment. And then Far Cry 4, it took me about 15 hours to finish. Well, at the time of the recording, Sean, we've only had this game for 5 days. I've played Far Cry 6 for 45 hours, and the game ain't even close to being finished yet. And that's without me doing a lot of side stuff. Because there's a lot of side stuff in this game too.
So it's like, is it like a Valhalla type of experience here? Like things are just gargantuan in Far Cry. Like I had that moment, almost maybe like a Breath of the Wild type of experience where I was playing I tried to put in as much time last night as possible. I think I was playing until 2 a.m, maybe 5 or 6 hours of gameplay. And then they're like, okay, just remember to have a look at your map. And I opened it up again for the first time in a while. And I thought I was like driving all over the place and seeing all these things. And it was basically like the plateau. What's the plateau called? In
the tutorial island.
Like really just the tiniest speck. Yep. And the map is, I don't know how else to say it. And I normally don't get too intimidated by a big map or when people say like, there's lots to do. This could be an issue, I think, in my early stages. And I think our conversation with us being in 2 totally different places in the game can be interesting because you will have experienced and seen through some of maybe my first impressions of the game. And so we can create a bit of a journey for people here, Ryan.
Of course. So first of all, I want to talk. So maybe we set up the story real quick. So obviously you play as Danny Rojas, who can be either male or female. So they actually give you that choice right at the beginning, but you can't customize her at all.
No.
But there is a reason for that because this game is much more cinematic than all of the other Far Cry games because there are full cinematics that aren't from the first-person perspective this time around. They're from the third-person perspective, and you see Danny a lot in this game. Which I thought was a really interesting choice. But basically her and her 2 friends, or him and his 2 friends, basically live in Yara, which is an island that's basically Cuba without it being called Cuba, which I thought was also a weird choice too, because most Far Cry games actually take place in a real life location like the Himalayas or like Montana, which was Far Cry 5. This time around, they base it kind of off a real place, but they made it a fictional location to not tie any of the real life Cuba stuff into the game, I guess.
But which is just out of swimming distance to America. Like it really is Cuba. Like they even mentioned like let's go to America and it's close by. Like you can kind of do the math from there.
Yeah, that's essentially like the idea at the beginning of the game is basically they're trying to basically escape Yara and basically go straight to Miami, but then essentially their whole plan goes awry. Danny's 2 friends basically get killed, and then you're basically marooned on an island and basically have to join a resistance group to basically take back Yara. As it were, from Giancarlo Esposito, who is actually a really awesome villain. I actually really like him a lot.
Of course.
Throughout the game, especially too because I feel like they use him a lot more than previous Far Cry villains, because in 5, for the most part, you really didn't see the father all that much. It was mostly his 3 lieutenants that you saw throughout most of the game. And in Far Cry 4 or 3, you didn't really see either Pagan Min or Voss all that much, except for like specific key moments.
Yeah, they set him up and kind of maybe it's like a bookend type of experience with sort of milestones throughout the game briefly in those previous games. Yeah, this is like, but also like he's very gritty, like very, he has like this ideal that he's trying to execute upon to return some sort of vibrance and survivability to his island, but it's just like the most grotesque and violent way to get there. And I for me, early in the game, I haven't decided where I land on him. Maybe there's a turn that he makes, but he's absolutely vicious and totally set on his goals, and working with his son as well, who doesn't seem to align, or like he understands what he's going after, but doesn't really want to go down that path. So me early in the game, I'm curious to see what his son, his name is Diego, what he'll do. Like if he will turn to the dark side, or if he's going to be, you know, like the good side to opposite to his dad's dark side.
Yeah,
I'm
like
interested.
I think Diego's really interesting, and I love kind of seeing his journey throughout the game. But again, I don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah,
Again, the game's out tomorrow, so I think we're gonna kind of put the story to rest there. As far as the gameplay, it's more Far Cry. That's real. I can't see that in both in like the like any other words beyond that. I think that if you are really, you know, excited about Far Cry, if you like Far Cry style games, if you've liked all of the previous games, then yeah, this one's going to be more up your alley, because again, it's more Far Cry. But I had a stinking feeling the entire time I was playing this game, Sean, and I saw a couple other people on Twitter had mentioned kind of having a similar problem with this. I know one of the writers over at Forbes, for example, took to Twitter about this, where I'm starting to feel Far Cry fatigue in a way, especially because the Far Cry formula of, you know, taking out bases and kind of filling in this giant map has really carried over to all of the other Ubisoft games that we play, from Assassin's Creed to Watch Dogs. And I don't know, at this point, I'm kind of over it. Like I'm ready for some kind of major shakeup for Far Cry. Like I think there are some gameplay shakeups with this game. For example, you don't have the skill tree that existed in previous games. Basically, you have skills, but they're actually applied to the different weapons or your outfit for your character. And you wear different clothes that have different, you know, skills attached to them. That's kind of how it works in this game. Yeah. And that's how you get skills that way, rather than a progression system. So I think that there are some interesting elements. Also, you don't pick up weapons from enemies anymore. You essentially buy them from a store, or you find them in chests, but essentially you have access to every single weapon you've acquired throughout the entire game at any time. Which I kind of like. I actually like, and it's funny because that is a shakeup to the Far Cry formula. It's a pretty fundamental change to how you experience the game. And for me, kind of still early in, I'm just collecting stuff before I really refine my character in that way at all right now. Like I've actually haven't really changed much of my weapons at all. I'm kind of like gathering materials and seeking out the missions. And some enemies, it's almost like, I don't know if it's too terrible a comparison to make, but like Youngblood had certain enemies that really were only vulnerable to a certain ammo or modification on your gun, and that seems to be the case here in Far Cry as well, where some people are like really heavily armored, so you'll need your armor penetrating ammo, and some people aren't, and you'll have extra, you know, different types of ammo for that as well. So that part was interesting to me, and to your point, like about how it is a little bit more Far Cry. So then, like, kind of what are you left with? You're left with this story and the characters and, you know, the sidekicks that you've got. I've got a crocodile wandering around with me, chewing people up in half and things like that. Shout out to, is it Juan Cortez? Yeah. Juan is, I think, and maybe this changes later on in the game, but like at least at the start, is one of my favorite characters of the year. Honestly, I think this guy is awesome. He's like this, you know, hardened, kind of jaded, but still has like this kind of funny, Latin sense of humor and kind of dark, twisted sense of humor. He's got his rules about how to be a guerrilla, like a freedom fighter. And I'm totally infatuated with this guy. I think the performance is really good so far, and I want to spend more time with this character, to be honest with you. Yeah, I mean, you'll get to learn lots more about him throughout the journey. And one of the items he gives you very early on is basically this backpack that you wear that at the start basically gives your character an ultimate ability of shooting rockets from it to basically take out vehicles or other large structures. But then throughout the game, you can actually get different backpacks that have different abilities that are kind of like your character's ultimate from like either an MMO or a game like The Division or something like that, which of course they had to work something like that into this game at some point. There's also an experience system in this game, but really all the experience system gives you is access to buy new weapons at one shot,
right?
Essentially, or items. So it either allows you to buy new backpacks or other items that, you know, give you different skills and whatnot. So I don't really find that when a mission gives you the reward of 100 XP, I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not really like that. That's not a motivator to go do that mission or anything like that, which is interesting. But also, one thing that I noticed about this game that is also interesting is that there's also anti-air bases in this game. So in Far Cry 5, like it would be, I found myself, you know, pretty easy to get around the environment in that game as soon as I unlocked the ability to summon helicopters. But in this game, you can't do that because you have to take out anti-air bases, basically that block out the skies before you do that, before you can fly around the map and fully explore that way. So that adds another wrinkle to the gameplay.
What about the choice between sort of like an all-out assault or stealth? I know like you and I are kind of different on the stealth take. There seems to be a push, at least in the early options, of like going in, not being noticed. Did you lean into the stealth? And as soon as I got the, what was it called? The Supremo, like the rocket launching backpack thing. That was my approach to any fortress of some sort. Just like, I will use that thing to take out the alarm and maybe 4 other guys and then just go in with a gun. And that's where Far Cry has always shined for me, is when it gets really outrageous. It's always grounded in these very gritty, real situations. And then you're like, I'm going to take my crocodile or alligator over here, rip this guy into and blast this thing to bits with all my rockets and fly my helicopters around. Like, it's actually outrageous at that stage. And so I'm curious from your perspective about that. And also, did you opt to be stealthy? Because I just suck at stealth, and that's not for me.
So the beginning portion of the game, when I was on the kind of the tutorial island and kind of the first area you go to beyond that, I was not. But I learned very quickly that stealth is very overpowered in this game. Like, stupidly overpowered, especially when you have guns that have silencers on them and have armor-piercing bullets, because armor-piercing bullets go through almost every single helmet an enemy wears in the game. And if you have a scope on your gun with a silencer on it, you can headshot every enemy with one shot.
There you go.
No problem.
Pro strats.
So I basically just go through bases getting untouched until I get to areas where, you're hacking a computer, so the alarm goes off and you've got to defend the computer while it's hacking from all these enemies that are suddenly generated. But for the most part, like an outpost or something like that, I find them just too easy to take out because I find I'm so effective with the stealth in this game combined with the arsenal that I feel is a little more powerful than in previous Far Cry games. Like, I think stealth got a big upgrade this time around. Plus, you've also got throwing knives as well that are also another stealthy ranged approach that can be part of your backpack as one of the craftable items. So you have a lot, like way more stealth options this time around than in previous games, and I feel like it's very powerful if you can stay unnoticed.
I mean, honestly, Ryan, like this is something that maybe we'll be chatting about over the next couple of weeks, and definitely we'll be doing an extra mile on this, but there's so much to unpack here, like the modes of transportation. Even you mentioned helicopter, early in the game, you get a car, which is like this awesome classic kind of vehicle with a mounted gun in the back, and you can reload your ammo in the trunk. And it gets driven to you, or you can hop on a horse, which I don't know that I've ever been like riding on a horse in first person before, but you do that in Far Cry, and it's actually a pretty good time, man. I actually quite like it. There's tons here. So yeah, there's gameplay, which is outrageous. And I'm very curious to see how the story and the setting kind of play out. My early reaction to it, Ryan, a little bit is like, it's almost too gritty. Like, and I don't know where this is coming from, because I don't typically have this kind of like reaction to something like that. I don't mind gore in games. I don't mind, kind of terrible situations, but it feels very real, for better or for worse. It feels very like I feel affected by what's happening to these people. Like they're really like victims, and not necessarily the freedom fighters, but like the people of Yara. I'm just like, holy crap, these guys are just completely stuck, and under the rule of this total tyrant who's dead set on changing things and killing whoever he needs to kill, and all this is very, very. It's a violent setting, very desolate. So I would say heads up for that. And then maybe lastly, probably should have said this at the start. Thank you to Ubisoft Canada for the codes for both Ryan and I. We were playing. I guess you said we were getting it early, so that obviously implies that.
I was going to say that there's no way I could have put 45 hours into the game.
Just to be clear,
at this point, and not have had a code for it. So yeah, huge thank you to Ubisoft Canada for being an awesome supporter of the show.
Big time.
Years. And so. To kind of wrap up this conversation, I asked for questions for Far Cry, and we did get one from Jedi Master Ren on Discord, and he asked the question, "Hey guys, so I love my time with Far Cry 4, but I fell off hard with Far Cry 5. I also know 3 is touted as the best one hands down. Do you think Far Cry 6 has done enough to mix up the monotonous gameplay loop of previous entries and possibly dethrone Far Cry 3 from the top of its IP's food chain?" So Jedi Master Ren, this kind of goes back to what I said before, and I've got bad news for you. No. I mean, if you've fallen off the Far Cry formula, this is just more of it. I mean, yes, I think the story and setting and some of the gameplay shakeups are definitely kind of make it probably one of the better Far Cry games, but I think the length of the game and how much content is there in a way I think works against this argument in particular, like what you're talking about, Jedi Master Ren. Like, I think one of the things that made Far Cry 3 such a fantastic experience was just how tight that experience felt. Like, especially up until like the midpoint of that game, like it felt like a game that really respected your time. Whereas Far Cry 6, it's going to be tougher for someone like you who's really fallen off the formula with the game. Yeah. So I would say that, I mean, unless you really want to give it a try, or if you think that, maybe you're craving more Far Cry, then definitely check it out. But otherwise, I don't think it does enough for people who have maybe fallen off this formula or fallen off the series to kind of win them back anyways. But that's just me. That's just how I feel about it now. Maybe I changed my mind kind of when I finished the game, because again, I'm not finished yet, but as of right now, that's kind of my read.
You need to put another 150 hours in, Ryan, before any of that. And obviously, Back 4 Blood is coming out. I will say, like, for me personally, I like 5 the best. Like, for me, I thought that was the most fun I've had in a game. Like, the sandbox nature of it is exactly what I want. So I can't wait to jump forward to next week to kind of talk to you again as I put more time into this and see. I may be coming out on this in a bit of a different state, because I like that quite a lot. That loop. I'm very curious on where this story goes, so that that there's actually quite a lot more to Far Cry than just the gameplay itself, and I think that gets lost a little bit because it's just, for whatever reason, that seems to be the narrative that surrounds it. It's also worth mentioning that this might be one of the showcases for a Series X and whatever TV that you've got there, because it is totally gorgeous. Almost no slowdowns. There's a couple moments where I've seen like a little like frame jutters and things like that. But for the most part, colors are amazing. You go to the beach and there's crabs running around everywhere. Like, there's detail oozing out. Play it with a good set of headphones if you got them. That's how I played last night. And sound effects, music, it's all very, very good from that perspective. So I don't know. It's one of those things that it could be just like I said with Assassin's Creed Valhalla. If you're kind of looking for a game that you're just going to play for the next year, and for the people who look at the dollar value compared to how many hours you're getting out of it, like, there's something to be said for that too, because there's a loud audience and a loud group of people who talk all about that. If I'm going to spend $60 on a game, I want it to last forever, and this is kind of maybe the answer to that crowd. So,
definitely. If you want tons of game and you really like the Far Cry formula, then absolutely. I think you're probably going to dig this game a lot more than I did. That's for sure. Yeah. And it's just also one of those things too, that the story, as much as I like certain moments of the story, it's just not super winning me over in the way that I would have hoped. So
I also want to play co-op with you. I want to play co-op with you, Ryan. I think we can jump on the line together. That would be fun. Yeah.
Also, last point before we move on, this is also the very first Far Cry on consoles that runs at 60 frames per second. Yeah. Thank God. Thank God, because it made a big difference with the gameplay. It feels so much better to play, for sure. All right,
Look at
let's slam
that.
the brakes on this
Games.
conversation. It's time for some breaking news, and we're only going to do one news story this week since we're
Game
running a bit
Pass.
long. Game Pass. We got to talk about all the games on Game Pass. So we got a couple Game Pass announcements during the Tokyo Game Show, as well as a whole bunch of other games coming to Game Pass. So I'm going to read them all in one chunk. So the following games are available now at the time that you're listening to this: Scarlet Nexus.
Nice.
AI The Somnium Files, which is a really awesome detective game that I really recommend people check out. Totally Accurate Battle Simulator, the Procession to Calvary, and Visage, or however you want to say it. And then October 12th, we get Back for Blood and Destiny 2 Beyond Light on PC. Shout out to Todd Oxtra, who's probably celebrating somewhere wherever he is. Because, I mean, I remember him writing at least 3 different questions asking about it throughout our history. So
Yeah, just in time for the Witch Doctor or whatever the hell is coming out next year.
Yeah. Well, it's
I
out
don't know
this
what
year.
it's called.
Oh, no, in February.
Yeah, 2022.
Yeah. And then we got Ring of Pain on October 14th, The Rift Breaker on October 14th, and then The Good Life out on October 15th. So that's the kind of our first half of the month Game Pass drop. Pretty good pretty interesting selection of games. I shouldn't say good because I don't know about all these games, but Scarlet Nexus is awesome. AI The Somnium Files is a game that I know a lot of people missed, but I know it's a really fun game. That's from the director of the Zero Escape series. So if you played those games before, you'll know what you're going to get into with that one. And then Back for Blood, going to be a really exciting kind of day one release on October 12th. It's too bad that it's not the same day as kind of the ultimate or the deluxe users, because they all get access to the game tomorrow the day you're listening to this. So there you go. But then the following games are leaving Game Pass on October 15th.
Ooh.
Goner 2, Heave Ho, Katana Zero, Scourgebringer, Tales of Vesperia HD, and The Swords of Ditto. So those games are all leaving now. Just wanted a quick shout out to Tales of Vesperia. It's a game I really recommend people. It's a really great JRPG, of course, in the Tales series. And it's also like $10 right now. So you might want to grab it now before it leaves Game Pass and leaves sale, because it's actually a pretty good price for the game.
Nice.
So, there you go. All right, let's let some of our friends into the car with us. It is time for the carpool. And speaking of TPR, because you talked about TPR earlier when we were talking about Halo, TPR says, I gotta be honest, playing Infinite with the Capri crew this weekend was the best multiplayer experience I've had in a long time. I've been reshaping who I game with online, and I feel more at home than ever doing it so with this joint cinematic universe of this community, PSVG, and the trophy room.
Yes.
All right, now on to the question. Infinite has been my very first Halo. I loved it. Where should I go now until Infinite's release for more Halo?
Oh, man.
My first indication is to boot up the Master Chief Collection and start running the series campaigns with Combat Evolved. What do you think about this? So, Sean, as a new fan to Halo, where should TPR start?
Reach. Go to Reach, and you might be done after that. And you might just play Reach until Infinite comes out, and that might be, I don't know, is that kind of harsh to say, Ryan? I think
it's very harsh to say, and I think you're wrong, and I hate you.
Oh no! Oh no!
So here's the thing: you're right in saying Reach is the best place to start, because number one, it's actually a prequel to the first game. So it actually kind of sets up the story nicely. Some of the stuff towards the end of the game will hit a less of an emotional beat for you, but at the same time, I still think it's absolutely worth playing first. And then I would play Halo Combat Evolved, because it's the best game in the series. That's right, I said it, Sean. So there you go. So plus you can find the floods in that game, Sean, which is the best part. So yeah, either way, we both say start with Reach. That's how I would do it. Play the Reach campaign, and then if you like the Reach campaign, play through the rest of them. That's how I would say it. In
try
order.
and find a friend too. Try and play co-op.
Sorry?
I was going to say, try and play co-op as well. Try to find a friend if you can do it together. I think that's it's a fun way to play. But I don't know if you agreed with that. Maybe you would prefer to play solo. We're providing the exact opposite advice on this one.
So co-op, I think you're going to have a fun experience with co-op, but the downside is if you've got a co-op partner that likes to skip all the cinematics, or if they've played it before.
Good point.
That's the type of thing that makes it a little bit harder for someone who's trying to get into the series for the first time, or play these games for the first time, because the story might just go over your head and then you might not enjoy it as much, I think.
But let's be honest.
I do think the story is worth paying attention to.
It's kind of nonsense, though, man. Like, what is even happening? You got these things that look like Admiral Akbar. They're like these prophets, and then you become friends with this guy who you didn't think you'd be friends with. What is happening? There's the rings. They fire. They don't want to fire. They're religious. This is me doing the thing that I was talking about before. I should do a 5-minute video explaining this story of Halo very poorly. That's what I should do. That'll be my shtick.
I'm sure those videos already exist out there, but you could do it definitely.
No, they do it like people do it like, all the lore. They do it very well, very respectful. I'll talk about just the nonsensical nature of the Halo series. So I don't know. I want to set expectations appropriately too, because I think that a lot of what TPR is basing their enjoyment on is the multiplayer stuff. So yeah. I'm very curious to see how they might experience the single player. But I think Reach is a no-brainer. I think it is rock solid. It has lasted up until this point. It's almost indisputed, I'd say, amongst the Halo community that it's excellent. So start there. But
yeah, and it's also the campaign of all the older campaigns that holds up the best. So in fact, it's actually one of my favorite campaigns for Halo.
Same.
So definitely start with there. And then the last question this week comes to us from Todd Oxtra at Talkstra.
Hey.
We gave him a shout out earlier, but he asks, with Nickelodeon Nicktoon fighting game out now, which Xbox character should be a third-party character for the Nicktoons fighting game? Sean, what Xbox character do you think should be in the Nickelodeon fighting game, if any?
Technically, this is Xbox, but I guess comes from Rare. I want Conquer. I think Conquer would actually fit right in with like kind of the raunchiness, the nastiness that is, or Raz. I'll put Raz from Psychonauts, because I also think that there's a raunchiness to that, and sort of like a, I don't know, unpolished kind of Nickelodeon kind of vibe. It fits right in with Ren and Stimpy in my mind.
Yeah, but they're not all like trying to go for that style either. I mean, you've got, Rugrats in
Ninja
there,
Turtles.
or you've got
Rugrats are raunchy. They're like the nasty. It's not polished animation at all.
But okay, but Avatar: The Last Airbender, that's not raunchy at all.
That's a better example.
Different so I think they go away from that a little bit. But my pick is Pinata from Viva Pinata.
Nice.
And pick any of the pinatas. Make it a character. Maybe you could be like Pokemon trainer, and then you could summon multiple pinatas.
I love that.
You basically switch between them with different styles. I don't know. To be honest, I don't think most of the Xbox characters kind of fit in with the Nicktoons crowd, especially with the cast of characters you've got there. Besides maybe Conquer, but I didn't want to say the same person as you. So
no. Is it Rom or Ram? Do people say from Gears of War, from the first one? Like the best character in the
no one ever
series.
says it, so I don't know.
General Rom, put him in there.
I call him General Ram.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Doesn't matter. We're both wrong. Anyways, before we go, Sean plugs go. That's the end of the show.
Man, we have so many games, and I'm so glad people are on this journey with us. We were going to keep playing Far Cry. Back for Blood is going to happen. We're going to play that as a community. I'm going to stream the Nickelodeon Brawl game at twitch.tv/Sean Capri, so make sure to follow me there. Halo Saturdays continue, probably, and also you can find me on Twitter at Sean Capri. Of course, it's Sean like Connery. Capri like the pants.
Very nice, my friend. As for me, you can find me on Twitter at Ryan Turford. You also find us on Twitter at Yumi Capri's, and on YouTube, youtube.com/Yumi Capri, and on podcast services around the globe. So for Sean Capri, I'm Ryan Turford. This has been episode 210 of the Xbox Drive, and we out.
Buckle up, everybody. There is so much dang coverage coming to you from the Xbox Drive and from the PlayStation Drive and from the Nintendo Drive. I'm going to be playing Far Cry, and I'm also going to be doing a review for Tales of Arise. I'm going to be doing a review for Metroid, and Ryan's going to do a review for Metroid. I think Kato and him are going to do something for the OLED on the Nintendo Drive. So much stuff happening. The Xbox Drive is fueled by patrons at patreon.com/Yumi Capri. And from the bottom of my heart, I am so grateful to the nearly 70 patrons who support us each and every month. With special thanks to our Capremium producers, Dallas Ford, Lee Navarro, the fearless leader of the Phoenix Overdrive Extra Life team, and Jonathan Brown, the man behind the music on the Xbox Drive and the Nintendo Drive. You can support Jonathan Brown at youtube.com/GamingPurpleMonkey. Our platinum producers, Robbie Bobby Miller and Trucker Sloth, and all of our gold members, Argo, Benji Kong, Brendan Myers, Dallas Robbins, Dano, Emily O'Kelly, Foolish Fuji, Heather Boney, James Johnson, Dr. Doom, Joel Brooks, Jose Jimenez, Mac Time, Marcus O'Neill, Mr. and Mrs. Nasty Boots, RJ Kern, Skinny Matt, and Xavier Reyes. If you'd like to support this show, go to patreon.com/YumiCapri and choose the Patreon tier that works for you.